Daniel Légère is the president of the New Brunswick Federation of Labour. Today, he joins us to speak about the proposed Bill 23. Here is what he has to say.
Bill 23 is a piece of legislation that affects the terms and conditions around collective bargaining, and more specifically, when it comes to strikes or lockouts. Why the government is bringing this in now is that well, that's the $1 million question. Certainly, in my opinion, the reason that the government is bringing it in is to get back at CUPE, who mounted a successful strike last fall, and to put a shot across the bow of the boats of the public sector unions that are either in or going into bargaining. There isn't any need. There's nothing broken. I'm at a loss, other than the fact that it's retaliation. Why the government would bring this in at this time.
Mm-hmm. The government wants to replace an absent worker in a position designated as essential during a strike. The list of possible replacement workers includes employees not included in a bargaining unit, casual employees, private contractors, or striking employees themselves. What do you think about this move?
Well, that's one of the parts that causes us, the labor movement, great grief. I've been involved in the labor movement for 40 years, and it precedes me, that the striking workers would not picket their workplaces, and the government would not bring in replacement workers. Now, I've been on a number of public sector strikes as a striker. I've been there to assist a number of strikes. And this has never been an issue. The unions take that responsibility very seriously. The designations level are agreed to by both sides, and if they can't agree, it's imposed at the labor board what the designations level will be, and all sides got to live with that. And historically, it's never been an issue. Unions have always, public sector unions, made sure that if there's a designated worker that can't go into work because they're sick or whatever reason, that someone else goes in. They'll take a striking member and send them in to replace the sick or worker for whatever reason couldn't show up for work that day. So it's never been a problem. It hasn't been a problem. I don't believe it would be a problem going forward, and why they've got to bring this legislation in and adding a new dynamic to it. And that's the part about bringing in scab workers. I just, that baffles my mind, especially the part that goes to suggest that we start picketing hospitals and schools and so forth. The arrangement that we wouldn't picket our workplaces, the employer, the government in this case, wouldn't bring in replacement workers, has worked well for generations.
The government says that essential workers refused to work during the province-wide 16-day strike in 2021. Is this true?
To my knowledge, no. I believe that designated workers went into work, and if they couldn't, again, replacement workers were sent in by the union.
So does the Bill 23 attack workers' rights?
Absolutely. It attacks the rights, it tips the balance of power towards the government. The final resolutions, the conditions that go around arbitration, I don't believe any union would ever agree to go to arbitration under those conditions. Basically, the arbitrator's hands are tied in a ruling. So it's a tip playing field. Now, I was in the legislature on Tuesday, and the Minister Holder, emphasized that it was all about maintaining a level of service for the public good. And We have a way of doing that now. And the reality is that we're not working at designated levels now. The shortage of workers. So they should be focusing on
Mhm.
bringing up the staffing levels in our public services to that level outside of a strike.
Mhm. Talking about the staff shortage, it seems the government can file a complaint with the Labor and Employment Board to compel the union to ensure that its members fill the essential position. Um, do you think the government can actually find replacement workers given the staff shortage crisis?
Well, that's the other part that kind of defies reason. There's a shortage of workers now. Where are they going to find these workers? Where are you going to find school teachers? Where are you going to find nurses? Where are you going to find whether they're educational workers, healthcare workers, nursing home workers? Where are these people going to come from? The government would be much better off, in my opinion, to sit down and work this through with the unions and try and address the recruitment and more so now the retention problem that they're facing. This isn't going to help the retention problem. This is going to aggravate it. They're making things worse.
Mhm. So, what are the broader implications of this bill?
Well, the broader implications are if you start seeing picket lines going up in front of healthcare facilities and in front of schools, and you're having replacement workers cross them picket lines. Certainly we see that in the private sector now, where private sector employers will bring in scab labor, and it brings in confrontation, sometimes violence on the picket line. It divides families, it divides workplaces, it divides communities. And
Mhm.
the government isn't going to achieve what they say their priority is to maintain a designated level of work if that workplace has a shortage of workers now.
Mhm.
It's like giving someone a puzzle box. If I gave you a puzzle box, and there's 50 pieces to the puzzle, and I say, if you go on, and I only give you 40 pieces, you only got 40 pieces.
Mhm.
And I tell you, you got to make the 50-piece puzzle, and there's only 40 pieces to work with.
Right.
It makes no sense.
Mhm. Another proposed change is a new clause that would give the government the power to join picketing during a strike or limit the numbers of pickets and the places they can demonstrate. How does the union view this clause?
Well, the union, is totally against that. They could ban picketing in front of MLA offices. When you go on strike, now workers, let's understand, a strike is the thing of last resort for workers. Workers don't want to be on a picket line in the cold, in the rain, and not getting a pay and not receiving benefits. They want to be at work and earning the pay so they can buy groceries and put oil in their oil tank for their family. So it's a mechanism of last resort. So the implications of saying you can't picket, the government dictating how many picketers, where they can picket, um, that's very problematic.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, who has to be held to account would be the elected officials. The public sector strike, you'll see picketing at the legislature. You'll
Mhm.
see picketing in front of MLA offices. You'll see picketing in public spaces, which should be allowed. I mean, we're in a free and democratic society. We elect governments, and governments got to be accountable.
Mhm. So, who benefits the most from this bill 23?
The government, and I say that I got to qualify this government because they've got a hidden agenda behind this. I can only speculate what it might be. I think it's payback, but there might be something
Mhm.
more sinister behind this. I don't know.
Mhm.
but it'll make things difficult for future governments.
As you said, this government, can you like elaborate what's the motive of the government to introduce this bill?
Well, it's like I said, they're saying it's to maintain a level of designation services. They're not doing that now in normal times. So I mean, that's a hollow argument. And it's never been an issue in the past. When designated levels have been agreed to, the unions have always provided that level of service. The only thing I can see it's mean actions on the part of the government.
Right, and also there was a 12 hours limit, I think, on the discussion at the legislature. Uh, what do you think? What's the motive of the government to limit the hours for the discussion on the bill?
Well, to me, it's pretty evident that they don't want to give the labor movement the time to mobilize and to try and influence public opinion against this piece of legislation. They're rushing it through. It's not just 12 hours for Bill 23. It's 12 hours for the totality of 5 different bills that are being brought forward, which, 5 divided by 12 isn't much time for debate. They clearly, I was in the legislature on Tuesday when it got second reading. The opposition was raising some very valid points, points that probably the labor movement would make. And the level of arrogance and contempt and no interest in hearing the other side of the story was quite frankly shocking to me, because I've been in the legislature, in the gallery many, many, many times. And there's no interest in entertaining any type of debate on this. So that's the reason for the time limitations. They want to rush this through. They want to block any ability for the public sector unions or the totality of the union movement. When this started coming down the pipe, the private sector unions jumped up and said, this is wrong. Even though it doesn't directly impact them, they work under the Industrial Labor Relations Act. This is wrong. And they stood shoulder to shoulder with the public sector unions, showed up in the gallery, showed up at some PCMLA offices last Monday, or this Monday past, and just said, this is just wrong. And I think the reason they fast track it is they want to avoid just that, the ability of anybody to influence public opinion on this matter
So it seems
before it gets passed.
right. So it seems the current government will pass this bill. In that case, how is the union going to counter, or how is the union going to react about this?
Well, we've come together as the labor movement in a way we haven't seen in a long time. Affiliates of the Federation of Labor, non-affiliates of the Federation of Labor, private sector unions, public sector unions, and we are in those type of discussions. So of course, there's a school of thumb or a thought that this is unconstitutional. So there may be a challenge, a legal challenge to this piece of legislation. There may be other events. We haven't, finalized that. Certainly, we'll be reaching out to opposition parties. We'll be reaching out to the Conservatives, hopefully before this is passed, and telling them, we're prepared to sit down, and we always have been. We've demonstrated in the past in a review of the Public Service Labor Relations Act. I think there's a lot of room for improving that piece of legislation. But in this case, there was no consultation. There was nothing. It was just, here it is. It's coming at you, and batten down the hatches. So finalized, we haven't had all of those discussions yet. They're ongoing, but you can be certain that there'll be a reaction in some way to this.
Okay, my last question, you said they did not consult, uh, the interested parties regarding this bill. Can you tell us why? Like, what's the, motive for that? Like, why is there no consultation?
Well, when you don't consult, it means you've got an agenda and you want to drive that agenda home. And
Mhm.
when you consult, you got to consider other points of view, other opinions. And I don't think there was any desire to do that in this case. Uh, and that was quite clear by the demeanor on the floor of the legislature on Tuesday.
Mhm. And that was Daniel Légère joining us from Moncton. He talked about the Bill 23 and how it's going to affect not only the employees, but the overall province. For the NB Media Co-op, this is Arun Budathoki.